Now, people ask me about this salmon. It's raised in Chile, actually, farm raised. Yeah, they're better choices, but this is pretty easy. This is 3 pounds, by the way. And I use that butt rub, B-U-T-T rub. Uh, Everybody seems to like it. As I said earlier, I cut down my amount of spice on it. And people asked me before, what's that? It looks wet. It is. That's all olive oil on the top. I bring the fish up to ambient outside temperature. In food in general, you should do that with, particularly red meat. And then I get this. I have the put 2 pans of water in the smoker. As I said, this is super easy. This will maybe take an hour. When you smoke fish, like the kind you're used to buying, smoked fish, that's cold smoked. It's at a much lower temperature, takes a lot longer. I'm doing this at 225, which kind of cooks it and smokes it at the same time. So it isn't going to be like smoked fish per se that you'd buy as smoked fish. It's going to have a distinct smoky flavor, but it's not going to be super strong. So this is kind of a hybrid of smoking, baking, and a smoker, that kind of thing. I put 2 pans of water in here. I don't know that it helps. And at least it's leaching it out of the cylinder as opposed to the fish, although that's why salmon's such an excellent fish to smoke. There's almost nothing you can do wrong. Believe it or not, salmon's finished at 145. I cooked to about 151. You get familiar with your smoker. This is a cheap smoker. The heat is disproportionate at the beginning, and it's not because it's closer to the firebox. It's this weird drafting they have on the bottom, but you learn to live with it, and that's why the thick part is towards the front of the smoker and the thin part is not. So I expect like an hour like this. I have my apple cider vinegar to keep it from drying out, and that's about it. And somebody was asking me the other day about what I've only been smoking about a year, and what have I learned the most about smoking? Well, you need a charcoal starter. Even if you're just dinking around at home and not smoking, this is worth every dime. Particularly when you're smoking, you'll screw around forever trying to get the temperature up in a smoker. Where when I dump these in there, we're ready to go almost in about 15 minutes. Excuse me. So people ask me what I learned the most. So I'll tell you what I learned the most. It's super easy to smoke stuff. The 2 best things you can get, I think, are a decent smoker. Don't get one of these cheap Home Depot or Lowe's deals. Get an old, thicker one. I have a Pecos made by Old Country, which doesn't get very good ratings, but you learn to live with it. They've got a Brazos, which they've really went up in price. I got mine for $200 because it had rust on it, but I knew it was going to rust anyway. So get a charcoal starter, worth every dime. See how blazing those coals are? And the next thing is get a set of digital thermometers, because like all people that smoke, you want bragging rights to brisket, and until you've cooked a brisket that isn't like shoe leather, you're nothing. Most of the people, I should say, or a lot of the people on YouTube, they think they're smoking, they're not. They're kind of grilling. Where the rubber meets the road is with a 10 or 12 pound brisket done properly. It's more like baking than it is cooking. But the things that I learned the most is most people, including me, without a digital thermometer, is you overcook things and you dry them out. I generally, as a rule of thumb, cook 5 degrees over when they're supposed to be done. And I probe it. Like normally I'd have probes in this, but fish is super easy. So I'm just going to hand probe it with a single probe. But if this was brisket, I'd have 5 probes at different parts of the thickest part of the meat, and I'd have one just sitting outside to get an idea what the ambient temperature is. I found the best way, they'll think you're a pussy if you're doing this, at a smoking contest, and you're not going to have access to an oven, but I think the best way to cook brisket is you put it in there for a couple hours. You're nowhere near where the collagen starts to melt, between like 140 to 180, and you get all that smoke in there over about a 2-hour period. You don't even need to babysit it really, unless, just for like excess temperature. Then finishing off in an oven overnight for about 10 hours at 225. You could cut it with a knife. Everybody says, God, how do you get this so soft? Well, I'll tell you what, I don't dry it off. I put it in a metal like turkey pan, and I cover it with foil. Punch the thermometers. I have my probes through the top, And when they start dinging off at 202, 203, I know it's done. And when it's in the oven, you don't need to worry about it. You're not going to get a big flare up and incinerate it like I've done a couple of times. So that's the main thing, overcooking things and drying them out. People do it all the time with chicken. I did it all the time with chicken. Chicken's better grilled than it is smoked. And pork's very dry too. It's easy to dry the hell out. Get an injector kit too. If I'm doing something like a big pork roast, inject it with like your favorite concoction. Go light, not heavy. I use mostly water and then put whatever I want and just inject that thing with a hypodermic needle about 5 times through the smoke. And at the very end, everything, people laugh at this, and I kind of learned it in Texas when I was out there. Butter makes everything better. Just a little butter on the top. I use olive oil to start off everything, and it just seems to work wonders. I mean, this is basically idiot-proof. So this should be done in about an hour. I'm going to leave it as one whole piece today because Marty's never had any, wife's ever had any of this smoked salmon, smoked slashed, baked. And it's a much nicer presentation when you see it in one big slab as opposed to cut up in individual pieces. So party on.